We are live.
One. Da 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 da. Oh, I don't have it in the shot. It's in the shot now. All right. Hey
Oh,
everybody.
Cruncher.
Oh, almost knocked it off. Hey everybody, how you doing today? We are have special guest Rhonda Bender. Hello Rhonda, how are you doing
Hello.
today? This is your second
Oh, I
appearance.
love what you've done with the palette cam.
Pretty good. How are you?
Do you like that? Do you like the palette cam? Is that kind of so? With palette cam is being repurposed today. So today, I'm doing great,
What do you
Rhonda.
think, Rhonda?
Um, Rhonda thinks it's great.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So we are going to be
Very
doing
sexy.
a review slash demo
What?
slash trying to break the Reaper Vex airbrush. Right? And we had Rhonda on today because Rhonda, you've played with airbrushes in the past, but to your own admission, you're not
Just a little.
necessarily. Yeah, but you're not like super comfortable and you've clogged it many
No.
times and you're mentioning how you've
And I
tried to prime.
use a brush that's got a pistol grip, so I'm not very familiar with this kind of grip at all.
Yeah, you fell into the whole pistol grip promotions. Training.
Oh, I've never touched one ever. In fact, the only contact I've ever had with an airbrush is the one that's sitting on my desk right now as an ornament.
Ah, well, there was a pistol grip, which is a fine brush, fine airbrush, that was used, was kind of promoted there for a while, and it's good. I mean, it's great. It's a great beginner airbrush in particular. But I've always been more drawn to the traditional airbrushes, and that's what I kind of learned with. So this is how I'll take the air hose off. This is how the airbrush came to me. I didn't get a box, nor did I get instructions as you normally get. So a lot of it was just trying to have to figure it all out. So I got the D cup, and the D cup comes with this.
Hold on,
great
I have
little-
a question. Are
Okay.
you claiming that you would have read the instructions if they had been sent to you?
Yeah, we both know that's not true.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Like most men, you would have thrown it away and assembled it yourself.
I would have referred to them. How about that? Do I get credit?
That's a light way of putting it.
I would have referred to it. All right. So let's go back to the demo, which you, Justin, were crying that we make sure that we did. So I was just
Yes.
going to start painting. So anyways, with it comes this nice little cap. It comes on the top. Just covers it up and keeps it dry and keeps dust getting in when you're not using it. So we'll take that off. And then it has a little cap on the front. And it's long. It's nice that it's long because it won't damage your tip. Because the thing that we're going to learn today and talk about a lot is don't bend the tip. I always want to protect your tip, regardless of whatever tip you have. You want to protect your tip, especially when it comes to airbrushes.
We have an hour of this, don't we?
So
Yes.
what is that long cap for?
So this long cap basically covers up the front of your airbrush to add just a little sense of protection. And on the Reaper Vex brush, it's longer than most of the caps that I've seen with other airbrushes. And I think it's a good idea because you'll see how it has these little indentions at the end. To me, it just naturally felt like, oh, I can just grab these indentions. I don't have to worry about grabbing the end of the brush because if you see right here, it comes out further than the end of the brush, so it's easier to pull on and off. I know it's a
So
simple
that's
little,
just for storage.
just
not
for
for you.
storage. Yeah, you don't. No, you don't use it. You have to. I mean, you could spray paint inside of this, but it's not going to get on your model. So if you wanted to pretend like
Okay.
you're spraying, you could do that. But it's just for storage and protection. But I would say that was an interesting question, Rhonda. Continue with those, please.
Well, my pistol one doesn't have that.
Oh, it doesn't. All right.
It just has a little crown. It has a magnetic crown that comes on out.
So kind of the neat things, and we talked about this a little bit last week, is I got the D cup. And they were joking, calling the B cup and the D cup. The D cup is the bigger of the two, for obvious reasons. I mean, the D is bigger, B is smaller. I personally, if you guys are deciding, like I'm going to get a Vex Reaper brush, but I'm not sure which cup. I'll show you today as we're kind of painting, but I like the bigger one. I will never fill up this cup with paint. If anything, if you see where the kind of the bend of the cup is, and then it gets, as it funnels down into the airbrush and it's rounder out here, and then it funnels down. I will hardly ever put more paint than at this kind of imaginary line right here. I like the bigger brush because as I'm moving around, as I'm spraying things, I will spill paint, but I'm less likely to spill as much paint with the bigger cup, right? So that's why I like it personally, and it's easier to clean out than the small one. You can get in there, but to me, I think it's easier. But the main reason is to hold the paint in. Okay, so the business end of the airbrush is the front, and this is where your needle comes out, and this is where the tip of the needle comes out, and this is where your paint comes out. So you always want to keep this protected, especially when you're not using it, or maybe you're done, you want to set it aside, and you're going to come back to it. You're going to still keep it connected to its air hose. Right here is a little dial, and this dial, you turn it to the left, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? So lefty-loosey. Do you remember, you ever hear that, Justin? Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey?
Yes, I still use it to this day.
I use it all the time. So you loosen it up, you pull the airbrush, you pull the needle back, and you'll see there's a little, I don't know the word for it, and a cap, somebody on the stream will know this little term for where the paint comes out, my finger's covering it. You'll see
that's
needle out.
No,
nozzle.
that's the shooty point.
The shooty point. The shooty point, you want to pull the airbrush, the needle back within there, and I'm going to put this cap back on. I just took it off for demo purposes. So
Real quick, Proctor, not to adjust mid-show, but do you have any more light you can probably shine down on that? I feel like your primary camera might be there. That's better. 'Cause it seems like
actually, I had a question, and so did someone in the chat have the same question. To go back to your D cup, is there a lid that you can put on that while you're painting to prevent spills?
Yeah, you can just use the same lid that we took off.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can if you want to. When you start airbrushing, and that's a good idea. However, when you start airbrushing, if you're anything like me, this is just one added step. You don't want to mess with it. You want to get the paint on, and you want to start painting your miniature. I talk about spilling just because, Rhonda, you know me. I got paint everywhere all the time. If you ever see my palette or when we're together, right? I have paint.
Or
I
your
have paint
face.
on my face, on my hands, everywhere. So that's why the D cup. Now, probably if I would take the time and utilize this cap, it'd probably be better for me in the long run. But the cap actually has a little hole in the top. So if you really tried to spill paint with this, you could, but it would really help. You could do it that way. So that's a good idea. Where was I going with this? Oh, so this little dial, all this little dial really does is let you move the airbrush. Once you get the needle back into place, you righty-tighty it back in place. Finger tight, don't over tighten, especially with the airbrush. Everything, when you take it apart and put it back together, always finger tight. There's no reason to go ratchet it down. When I got the airbrush in the mail, maybe during the manufacturing, the assembly process, I had to grab a couple of riches to get these loose. They were really tightened on, so you don't need to tighten them back on. So maybe when you get yours, you'll have to do that. What I did, so I didn't scratch anything, was I got some pliers and got some masking tape or blue painter's tape, wrapped it around the teeth of the pliers and both ends, and just made sure I just popped it. And then I can open it up, and then it's all good after that. So just FYI, when you get your brush, that might be the case it was for me. All right. So, Rhonda, with your airbrush that you had before, all you did was pull the trigger like this, right? And your paint would come out. Well, this is a little bit different. This is dual action. So there's a down and back. Down, see the down? Down, down, down.
Okay.
Back, back, back. Down, down, down. Down means air. Back means paint. The more down, the more air. The more back, the more paint. That's what dual action means, right? So your other brush was just single action. You pull the trigger and the paint
you
comes
could
out.
hold it gently and just get some air, and then pull it back further and get paint and air.
I think this
Not with the kind of finesse that you have.
Were you ever able just to squirt air?
There'd always be just a tiny little bit of paint that would come out with it still.
The neat thing about the dual action is you can just squirt air and not paint. And why is that cool? You want to be putting paint on your model, right? Well, sometimes when you're airbrushing, then you might get too much paint out, or you're going very thin, kind of glazy thing, or very watered down coat where it's kind of wet and you want to dry it off. You can use your airbrush to help dry your miniature. So you've got surface too wet and you want to dry it off, just use the air, not air paint, and you can help dry it off as well. And you'll see that when you're airbrushing. Cool. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to have to come back and come back to it as well. I have the black needle, the black end needle. That's what I'm going to call it. It's got paint on it right now. It's the one, so there's two needles. There's the needle that does the fine work and the medium size kind of coating, base coating work. And then there's a needle that's really full or big work. I have the needle that does the fine work and the medium work, just because most of the stuff I'm going to be working on is this size or smaller. So it really does what I need to do. I don't need to just spray plast stuff. I used the other needle when I primed a little bit. I noticed a difference, but not substantially. We can play around with it later if we decide to, but I kind of wanted to focus on this. So that is really the airbrush, and we can take it apart at the end and clean it, but I don't want to take it apart and waste time on the show putting it back together. Sometimes it's a little tricky. The tricky thing with that putting the airbrush back together is the trigger. And let's talk about the trigger a little bit. I think it's pretty cool. I actually have the trigger on backwards right now. I took it apart last night to clean it, and I put it on backward. These little steps should be on the front. So yeah, that's the put your finger. So when you hold it, it's a little bit easier. And I think I've actually had it on backwards, not just last night. I had it last night that way, but even the time before. But I have it on backwards right now. So in practice, this should be flipped around the other way.
Kind of changes the dynamic of the review, doesn't it, Rhonda? It's more like a do as Proctor says, not as Proctor does.
Yeah, kind of thing. That's
maybe
this
is where the manual would have come in handy, I guess, because you would have seen the picture. What direction to put that in.
I know. And
I do have a question for you from chat that I think is a good one. So this is from Dan Goodchild. Do you use Teflon tape when attaching the quick release mechanism? It seems like the thing to do based on my old paintball markers.
No. I don't. I
think I did have that stuff for mine actually.
No, I don't. I use where is it? I use a little of the grease stuff. I can't find it right now. When I clean it all out and I'm putting the little parts back together, I've done a thorough cleaning. There's this little blue greasy stuff. Maybe that's what he's talking about. I use that when
No, this is for the quick release for the where you attach to the hose, I think.
Oh no, I don't. No, I use I don't use any of that stuff. I never have. I just, if I need to unscrew this, I just unscrew it back in. So
you don't actually have a quick release. You have a slow release.
No, I have a quick release. This is the quick release right here. I was just taking it off too, because you got to screw this quick release on the airbrush. That's what he's talking about. Right. I have a quick release right here too. And that way. I need to get another one of these because I only have one. And I have to switch it between my airbrushes when I go back to my Badger. My Badger 105 I use it mainly for priming now that I got this. But I still use it just because I like it too. I'm comfortable with it.
Well, this is a question for Justin. Because I think the fancy version of the Reaper airbrush is going to have that with it, right? But the current version that's going to go on sale at ReaperCon is kind of stripped down and doesn't have that quick release, I don't think. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, well, the quick release is typically something you buy aftermarket, but I don't know if they buy the set that has the airbrush. That airbrush has the compressor. I would imagine there's a hose, and I would imagine there's a quick release there too. I don't think just the brush alone is going to come with the quick release because it could be different. I don't know. I wouldn't sell it that way.
Right. I think the version that's going to be sold during ReaperCon, which is the next time because I know someone asked earlier when they can buy it. The answer to that is ReaperCon is the next time. Then outside of ReaperCon, it's like October, I think. Yeah. So, but when it's sold during ReaperCon, it's just the brush in like an embroidered pouch, I believe.
Yeah.
And I do not believe it will come with any sort of accessories like Proctor was saying, like the quick release.
So Gene jumped on the Teflon tape thing, and I gave Gene a shout out last week, but giving him another one right now. He's the one when I decided that, hey, I want to get into this airbrush thing. Gene is the one that gave me his old, not gravity fed, it was a side feed thing, but he's the one that gave me a bunch of tutorials and showed me a bunch of links for various YouTube videos, what have you. But it kind of gave me a hands-on on how to utilize an airbrush. So yeah, he used airbrush for a long time, still does. He just did those little cars that he gave out. Did you see those? The ones that he gave to Ron and Ed and Matt and
yeah, those are super cool.
Yeah, I think he airbrushed all that stuff. So yeah. So yeah, if you've got a leaky airbrush, then cool. And hopefully, I've never had a leaky airbrush, so I've never had that problem. So let's talk about paint consistency a little bit. You want to do that?
Could you just go over the 2-needle thing again? Because there was a question about what makes this brush better than a regular Badger or Iwata, and I think that having the 2 needles is one of the big answers to that.
It is. It is. The other thing too is typically, in order to switch out a needle, you have to switch out the nozzle in the front. In most airbrushes, my old Infinity 2-in-1, you had to not just switch out the needle, but you had to switch out the nozzle in the front. This one you don't ever have to switch out the nozzle, which is, and that's what I'm calling it. Hopefully that's the right term. That is awesome because I got them confused. I'm like, okay, which needle goes to which nozzle and which nozzle, and I always felt like, even though I think I had the right set, I always felt like I had it wrong. And anytime the airbrush was acting up, I was like, do I have the wrong set? So I can take out, and just to remove a needle that's easy. I need to put my glasses on to just thread the needle in the hole. And that's it. It's that easy. And it's in. And the difference, if you can tell, and I don't know the dimensions, the diameter or whatever, the sizes, because they weren't listed on the instruction manual that I did not receive. This one has a greater tapering to the needle. This one has a shorter tapering to the needle, right? So
which one is the more detailed one?
The longer one, the longer tapering one. It has the more flexibility. This is the bigger the needle. This is going to give you more paint out. Boom. This is going to give you flexibility of control. So I like basically go black and goof around if you want to go into your airbrushing. So I, in all honesty, in full confidentiality of the review, hey, Greg Zuniga, how are you doing? Greg knows a lot about airbrushing too. I most likely will end up just utilizing this black tip brush. This black tip needle, more so than the other needle. And the main reason behind that is, as again, this is going to be another theme of the show, I'm pretty lazy. I just like to set it up and go. I don't overthink things too much with that. And that's sometimes a good thing and sometimes not a good thing. But that's the way I airbrush, is really just trying to kind of get going and have fun with it, because that's what this is all about. So was there any other questions? And I was going to go into this little paint consistency a little bit.
I don't know if you can answer this one, if Justin can, but Rings Raccoon wanted to know if you can buy spare parts for the Vex. And if so, would that be through Reaper or through Badger?
So the short answer is, Ed had said that we are handling 100% of the support for this airbrush in every way. I don't know if that means we're carrying parts or if we will at some point. I imagine that's probably the case. But there's probably, would you say, Proctor, do you think there's parts on this airbrush that are probably switchable with other parts of Badger airbrushes that, in theory, if you bought it generic, you could swap it out, or no?
Yeah,
I don't know enough about airbrushes.
Parts is parts. I don't know. There are parts of my Badger 105 that I know I could just switch over and fit onto the Vex here. But that's a good question. I think that's TBD.
Yeah,
that
parts
means, Justin?
specifically I can't say, but I do know that as far as support, and that may include parts in the future. That's probably more of an Ed question on Thursday, but I can say for sure that we will be supporting it 100%. Not Badger.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys will be handling it. All right. So, do you need to buy special airbrush paints in order to airbrush? You can. There's lots of companies out there that make them, but you don't need to. I've always found that the Reaper paints are pretty easy to convert into utilizing for airbrush. Here's what I do. I just will, and I use these little caps. A lot of people, and I've done this before too, a lot of people will mix it in the airbrush, mix it in the pot. And that's one good way to do it. I bought a bunch of these little things, and you can get these at Hobby Lobby super cheap. And you get a 12 pack or something like for $5 or $6 or whatever. Clean them out and use them. And I just got some new ones. You can see these haven't had paint in them. What I like to do is this allows me to see the thickness of the paint coming out, right? So you see it's fairly thick, just straight out of the bottle. And then what I do is I would recommend getting one of these bottles. You can buy this came with an airbrushing cleaning kit that came with this, and came with a bunch of these little cleaning rods things. These are so nasty and dirty, they're so old, but it came with a couple of other things too. But this is great, and you can take distilled water, 9 parts, 1 part alcohol, 91% ibupropanol, and this is what I utilize too. But there's the theme of the show is my laziness. Is I went and bought at the store Vallejo airbrush thinner, right? And I used it all up. And then I had a gift certificate at a hobby store, and so I bought a big bottle of the thinner, and I used this, and I cut it down. Now, when I ran out of this, I mixed my ibuprofen and 9-to-1 with the water and made it in here. And all I utilize this for is to fill up this when it runs out. So I'm sorry, get on camera. This is what a little dropper bottle, fill it up. You can use the empty Reaper dropper bottles that I think you're going to get in the Reaper swag bag. Is that right, Justin? I think I saw that they were getting some empty bottles somewhere.
Yes, there is some too. I think it's in the regular one, not the.
Yeah. I think it's the hobby one.
Is that the hobby one?
Correct? Yeah.
Those are great. You're going to look at them and go, crap, empty bottles. What do I need these for? And they talked about mixing paints and making paints. That's cool and everything, but these are good. And then you got this is good for that, but kind of on a sideline too. Inks, once you discover inks, these are different inks than what Reaper makes, like inks by Liquitex and Winsor Newton, what have you. They're come in big bottles that are kind of expensive, but if you go in with some folks and share, you can use your empty bottles and put your inks in there, and then they're ready to go and ready to distribute. I use those. I use a lot of inks. So anyways, back to the paint thinness. Straight out of the bottle, I put a few drops in. I personally like the paint to be thin. I like to err on the thin side because you got your airbrush, you can just keep putting on more layers if you want. That's kind of the consistency right there, if you can see on the camera.
So, out of curiosity, can you thin with water if you want to? What's the downside to that?
Okay, you can thin with water. The concern with just straight water out of the tap is the minerals that are in your water. So that's why people talk about distilled water. Before we moved to our current house, we lived up in the mountain and we had a well, and I didn't know that trick when I first started painting, and I would start painting and thinning, doing thin layers, and we had so many minerals in our water that you could see it on the layers of my paint jobs. It would just be all crumbly or like pebbly, and I was like, golly, that's a shitty cast, but ended up being my shitty paint job, or not my shitty water, I should say. So that's kind of why you want to use. You could cut it with distilled water if you want. The alcohol helps it aerosol better, right? So you don't want to use, of course, just straight 100%, 91% ibupropanol, but
So it helps atomize the paint, is what you're saying too,
There,
partially.
yeah, aerosol, atomize, whichever term you want to use. So we.
I use a different airbrush thinner, and that's because when I was using just water, so many clogs. It was just so many clogs.
Here's another thing.
How many pairs?
How many what?
Pardon?
How many pairs? You said clogs. I'm making fun.
Wow,
it was dancing all over my sanity.
Oh, that was a cringe joke right there.
Thank you, Rhonda, for running with it. And Proctor, you know what? Get back to your airbrush.
I'm trying. Anyways, so okay. So safety. Typically, I have a little box, and I made this cardboard box. Just cut it out, and that's what I will airbrush inside to keep overspray from going everywhere else on my workstation. And I will wear a little mask. And I have this. Where's my cool mask? I'll typically wear this. But can you hear me when I'm doing this? Not very well, sort of.
Not really.
Old Darth Vader.
And I just, so you wouldn't be able to hear me while we're doing this. So I'm endangering my life per Reaper's direction in order to do this show.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, you're old. Don't worry about it. You don't even have kids.
I'm old. I don't have kids. It's, it is what it is. All right, so we got our thin paint. I will just pour it in. I know there's people that will take their brush and they'll pull it in, and that'll help from clogs. I know Aaron Lovejoy does it that way. I'm too lazy, so I just pour it in. Now, another reason, I don't know if I ever finished my thought. When I'm done, I don't like to pour it out. I'll pour it back in the cap, and I will keep these as I finished up painting. Then when I'm done, for me, an airbrush is a tool to get my base coating, my shading and basic highlighting, working in some effects. I'll come back to it, but the bulk of the work, the bulk of the final results are still going to be your fancy brush, regular brush, not this crap brush, but a fancy brush. That's the real work that goes into it. This is saving kind of for me at least, the boring steps of the base coating and what have you. But there's still some nice tricks and stuff that you can utilize. So we have the ankle biter here, sculpted by Jason Wiebe. So you'll see.
He's so cute.
So I've got paint in there. All I'm doing is pushing down, and you'll see there is no paint coming out. No paint coming out. Then just a little bit of a pullback is a little bit of a paint. A little bit of a paint. And it would probably even be even better if I didn't have the trigger the wrong way. And then the more you pull back, the bigger and darker you can make the spot. So if you're brand new to airbrushing, and even if you've been airbrushing for a while and you get this brush and you want to practice it, still the good thing to do is practice your lines. Practice your lines. Practice your lines, and maybe make them a little thicker and darker. And then, and then come back, and where you made that line where I did that, come back and dot where you made your lines. So you have that kind of control, and you can feel that control. You see where I got off on the side there. It's because at that point my glasses have lost focus. And there you go. And the smaller, and then you can get as big as you want. I can be same distance. This is where that needle's kind of cool. And do a small dot, same distance, and have a big stain, right? It's kind of a bad color to be doing this anyways. So.
Well, I'm just impressed that you're using an imprint color that anybody could go buy if they want.
Yes, this is an imprint. I'm not teasing you with some paint. I have to constantly do that. Oh, because the color that I grabbed at first. That color. Is this color gone, Rhonda?
Oh.
Did you save this color, or is this color completely gone?
No, that was a licensed thing, so there's no way to save that.
don't show that.
And would have to make something kind of similar, but not quite.
This is not
or Sadie, but they could never make that exact one.
So if you ever can find,
you could have used Bender Brown.
That's different. Bender Brown's totally different than Dune Shadow.
No, Bender Brown is, but I'm saying you could have used that as a thing they can't get.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I got a lot of ones I could do that with. Anyways, Terra Nova Thunder. That's another one.
I'm still working on saving that one, but
Right,
it's a similar problem. It's part of that line.
Okay.
So we can get something similar maybe, but we'll never get that exact one.
So we got this little, I'm going to call it the little shield, the little cappy thing. I have been taking it off recently just because I like to try to keep, when the paint comes out, one exercise, and I wasn't doing it because I was screwing around, and I'll show a good tip that I learned online recently was a good way to keep that paint buildup or minimize it is to, when you start, blow air first before you pull paint. Don't just go to shooting paint out. It sounds duh, but that will keep it from gathering paint. And then when you finish your airbrush stroke, I guess, or airbrush application, air first, then paint, paint, and then when you're done, finish with just air. That'll help keep your tip cleaner. And I'm talking about how this is this great lesson, and I'm as a master, I've known this forever. I just started recently doing this and applying this, so it's helped a ton. It's helped a ton. So I'm just going to start just putting paint on, and then so you'll see with painting with an airbrush, you don't just hold it in one spot. It's because it'll start puddling up like that. You want to be moving around. You want to be kind of dancing around and getting a nice coat. And it's like think of it as layering, where we don't want single. We're not looking to get one super fantastic coat all at one time. We're trying to build up our layers. And if you've done your zenithal priming, then you can even utilize that zenithal priming in your airbrushing to greater effect. So where you've got the white, it's going to read a little bit brighter than where you have the dark. And the more paint you put on, the darker it's going to be, the lighter it's going to be initially. Now, the good thing about airbrushing too is, you know how hard it is to paint, Rhonda, to put a coat of paint onto a black primed only miniature, to get that coverage and start seeing the color. Airbrushing
absolutely
kind of totally it's very forgiving in that standpoint. It's actually kind of cool just to spray on a black primed only miniature. It gives some good results too, and I'm not have that right for you today, but it's good to play with that as well. Oops, so I got too much on, and then so I using just air to kind of dry it off, right?
Okay.
And so I tend to do this. I'll work from the underneath of a model first. And,
you went too high. Now we can't see him.
No, I'll work from the underneath of a model first for whatever reason. I work on the legs and the body and stuff first, and then I'll work my way up to the back, to the top part. I did that with him. I did that with this guy as well. This is from last week, and I showed you I didn't demonstrate any airbrushing, but this is what I was working on when I first got the airbrush to kind of play around with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and so that's the way I kind of approach it, just to kind of get a sense. And I grabbed a bunch of colors, bunch of paints, and it's just going to be playing around with different colors. The cool thing about an airbrush, where when you're painting with regular paints and you are afraid to then repaint over something, because the more layers you paint on, you're going to be losing that detail of the sculpt. With an airbrush, the paint goes on so thin. I've taken miniatures and just airbrushed them, gone, that looks like crap, and then primed them again and painted over them again. And the layers are just so thin that you can it's pretty forgiving that way, which is nice. So I want to be moving around a lot, want to be kind of getting the shape of things, trying not to, I have some highlight areas up here that I want to maintain. So I'll work a little bit darker in here. And I'm thinking that this coat, you'll see, okay, so you'll see as I'm doing this, I'm starting to get a little bit of a buildup of paint on the tip. I don't know if you can see that well with the camera and what have you. So these things are really cool. And I just have my little water cup here. This doesn't even have distilled water, which it probably should, but anyways, it's on the outside. I will take this and wet it off and pull the paint off the tip. Key thing here is you always, Justin, what's the one takeaway of the day is don't bend the what?
The tip. Or the shooty pointy thing.
Don't bend the tip. Protect your tip. Guys, girls, everybody, protect your tip. So
Rhonda, would you say that that's good advice?
Yes.
I think that's solid advice.
So protect your tip. And so when you're doing this, go out like this. Pull out like this. Like pull away. Go towards the tip of the brush. Because if you go the other way, you're more likely to catch the tip and bend the tip. And if anybody, if you've seen a bent tip, it's just not good. So don't bend your tip.
Oh boy.
Do you have any tips for figuring out where, like, improving your aim?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Getting the paint to go where you want.
Okay. So, practice, right? So practice is the brush control, whether it's a regular brush or an airbrush, is all about practice, right? So figure out, and this is where your little pad of paper comes in. And Gene said before, when I first started, I remember him saying this. He goes, I know you're going to want to paint miniatures right away, but he goes, I really strongly suggest that you spend a couple hours plus just goofing around with the dots and really controlling where you want your dot, and then come back to that dot and dot again, and go back to that dot and dot again. That'll help you with your control and where you need to be. Does that make sense? So,
yes,
and then control doing your line. So it really, see how fine a line this can make if you really want it to make a line? I mean, that's super.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's like writing with a pen almost. It's kind of cool. Or I can go crazy, right? So, and then if you do that, now I did the air thing before and after, and you'll see even with that kind of, even though it wasn't a whole lot, there wasn't a whole lot sticking on the tip. So, one other thing that I've noticed in my limited use of this airbrush, it's about 5 or 6 sessions so far. The black coating on this, it does take a little bit more to get it clean once you get paint all over it. And I'm saying that in the fact of we have made full disclosure that I am messy and I get crap everywhere. You'll see at the end of a session, there is paint dripping down the sides and all that stuff on this. So that's my full disclosure on this. I will get paint everywhere. But it does take a little bit more. And what I have is I have a just a regular kitchen brush, and I cut it about this wide, and I should have brought it in there. And I use that with hot water. I take the needle out and I just give it a nice scrubbing. I just use warm to not scalding hot water, but not just warm water, hot water, to clean it off and even let it soak a little bit, because it's acrylic based paint. With a little water, it's going to come off. It's not that hard, but it just takes a tiny bit more cleaning than the chrome covered, your traditional looking chrome airbrushes. I think those are less likely for the paint to stick. But the coolness factor of having a black airbrush with the little Reaper logo on it is, in my opinion, worth it. Worth that little extra effort in cleaning. I just the airbrush.
It's pretty cool.
If it would have been chrome and had the Reaper logo on it, I still would have wanted it, of course. But it's cooler with the black.
No, I agree. Cool. The matte black looks really sharp.
The matte black looks really cool. And this little opening here with the dials go. Oh, one thing I forgot that's a really cool feature. Sorry, is see this little dial here.
Can you move up just a little on the camera?
Yeah. We can't quite see this dial. See this dial. So this dial goes back and forth. What's the term? Righty-tighty, Justin?
Lefty-tighty.
Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So what this does is And this is great. Not only people are going to say, well, this is great for beginners to use, and it really is. However, I use it. I don't use it much for just normal airbrushing, but when you get into doing inks that are really super sensitive and you really want to control how much is coming out, what this little guide does, is the more you dial it in, the less you're able to pull back your trigger. So I have it almost all the way dialed in, and I can't. And that's the furthest back that I can pull. It's stopping me, so I can only make these little lines now, right? So it helps you if you're like goofing around with the brush and you're like, just getting all this, just everything just comes out, just splatter everywhere. You can use this little dial, and it's almost like a little cheat code, and you can dial it in and keep it going in. I'll back it off a little bit more, so then I can control it. But even I've got it back pretty far, and it's still pretty good. And the further you're away, of course, the tighter the spray. Of course, the closer in, the less distance it has to spread apart, so the more fine it's going to be. So how close you are back and forth to the miniature is important too. Is there any questions that we're missing?
There weren't questions, but there was some good advice for practicing how to get better with your airbrush skills. Mm-hmm. So Dan Goodchild mentioned that Ken Badger recommended getting a dollar store coloring book to practice on. And Gene said use graph paper. So that you have to, you're doing the lines and the dots, but you have something that you're trying to aim for and follow.
Now, if you want to be that involved and take preparation and to learn more, then that's definitely the way to go. If you're lazy like me and just like, all right, shit, I need to practice first, then I just do it. I did all my practice on a paper towel. But we have the kind of the theme of things. Okay. I had made some mental notes of stuff I want to talk about. Air pressure. This is going to be a real controversial thing, I guess. I've seen that it's been a controversial thing. A lot of people like to run between 1 and 2 millibars on their compressor. I run a little bit higher, 3 plus. And why do I do that? Is because that's what Aaron Lovejoy showed me to do when I started airbrushing. And that's what I have found to be a little bit more challenging in learning the control and whatever, but it has cut down on my clogging so much to have a higher pressure than a lower pressure. It also controls on the speckling. It helps with that speckling, splatteriness of the higher pressure tends to reduce that a little bit more. But I personally like a higher pressure a little bit more. I've even tried on this airbrush. It's very tolerant either way. The way the needle works and everything, it's great. My old Infinity 2-in-1 airbrush, I really had to run it at high pressure because it was so finicky that I clogged it all the time if I had it at a lower pressure. So this is a lot more forgiving. Badger airbrushes tend to be. But that's just my take on it. And what compressor I use an old Iwata. This is super old. An Iwata Studio series. It has a little smart jet thing on it. It is not necessarily the most quiet. Now, Rhonda, have you heard my compressor at all during the show today?
Just a little, but it hasn't made it so we can't hear you or anything.
Yeah, no. If I'm just airbrushing at home and not doing the show, obviously, I'll have my headphones on, listening to music while I'm airbrushing, because you can't. It's right underneath my desk, so it's just underneath the desk directly to my right. So if you can't hear it, it's not all that super loud. So there's all different kinds, and you can spend a ton of money on a compressor. Just what you want to get a good one, or you can control the pressure, right? That is the key thing. And I do not have one that has an extra reservoir on the top to store the air. To me, that seemed like a unnecessary expense. I just have a regular one. It just comes on and off, and then I'll airbrush. Because most of my airbrushing sessions I have this particular miniature that I need to get done quickly. I will have an airbrush session of a couple hours, and I'll start painting afterwards. And I'll usually try to throw in a couple of other things since I've got the airbrush all set up and stuff with light colors. I started working on the Pirate King guy, and so the boat is just airbrushed. Okay. Yeah, the back of him is just airbrushed. So, and then he was airbrushed, and then I started doing some finer work with some paints and whatnot. I have some big, huge highlights here because that's where I just wanted highlights, so I just hit them with the airbrush, and then I'll blend them down. So that's a nice thing to focus on with the airbrush. You'll see that that's a little bit better. It's a little out of focus, but you can kind of see where the highlights are. The neat thing with an airbrush is you can get and jump to contrast quickly and block in contrast. It's kind of counterintuitive, okay, blocking in contrast, but you can get your contrast and your shadows, your highlights and your shadows, and then you'll come back and you can use your airbrush to kind of blend in between, but you're still going to come back with your regular brush and kind of fine tune things out and work things out and maybe throw some additional color and fades and what have you into it as well. But it gives you a great head start. I mean, this was maybe 20 minutes on doing this, and I even lightly dusted the base too, just to kind of give a sense of what was going on, but really not that much. I'll probably come back and hit the base once I figure out all the colors that's going to work, because I'll need something that contrasts and doesn't just blend in with the throne itself. So let's go back to, what time are we? Golly, it's already 4 o'clock or close to it. So let me just do a little bit more. I'm going to go a little bit faster and get a little bit better coverage. Is there any questions that we're missing?
There was a question about what's the difference between a good airbrush compressor, a cheap airbrush compressor, and a regular compressor other than noise.
Noise, to me, is, and size. I like the smaller compressors. Chicago Airbrush Supply, I have purchased from them. I bought my old Infinity set from them. And I found them very useful in the fact that they carry a lot of brands, so you can compare the two. I'm sure people in chat like Dan, or even if Gene wants to help out on the quality of that. Again, these are kind of technical things that I'm not, that I don't focus on.
Yeah, I'm concerned that I have a crummy compressor, but I really don't know how to tell if it's me or
you
the
know,
compressor.
The thing that I always found, there were airbrushes, there were compressors that Harbor Freight was selling that was like for $60-$80 that were great. And so my what I'm looking for is I don't want to spend too much money, and then I want something small, I want something that's not too loud, and I want something that I can control the pressure. That's really what I'm looking for. So those are really what I was looking for when I bought my compressor. I've had this is my 4th airbrush, and I still have the same compressor I started with. So your compressor will last you forever, unless, I mean, if it's lasted me forever, as hard as I am on things, it should last you for a long time.
Personally, I just took mine up to my compressor in my garage.
What, the big Porter Cable one?
Yeah, 120 psi or so.
You're gonna blow that thing out
so fast it goes through the Mini, but it's very effective.
Yeah, that's a good way to fuck up your airbrush. So I haven't dropped the F-bomb this show. So just look. Did I do a big cleaning of it to clean out the paint from before? It's a very similar color that we're going with in this green and tonality. So I just cleaned it out. I used my little pipette. It was a trick that, remember Sergio's class when I freaked out? There was a lot of great information that Sergio gave, but I forget who came to the class with these pipettes and gave me some pipettes. They're awesome, especially for getting the paint out of the airbrush and back into the thing and then washing it out. It's just fabulous. Just fabulous. I think maybe that was Greg
So much
Zuniga.
quicker.
Oh my God, I don't know. It was Greg Zuniga that had that, or somebody did. Another thing, Wicked Elf, Greg Zuniga does a lot of stuff on. He's got his little vellum things that he cuts out, but I think he does some videos with airbrushing as well. And Greg's really good at airbrushing too. I would suggest, just like I do with any painter, painting with the brush, go out and look at people that and how they're painting with the brush. But whatever videos or whatever you can see right now on airbrushing, there's a lot of stuff that I probably do that I don't even think about talking about or whatever, and they're probably better teaching with that, and just see how they're utilizing it. I think that's good to use too. So what I like to do, and I referenced some pictures. I got my paint a little thin on purpose.
So, also to clarify, I was kidding about the garage compressor, but it looks as if Shadow Spawn actually does do that. He just runs it through a second regulator as to reduce the pressure. So it's got a 20-pound reservoir, so it never needs to kick on.
So yeah, that's good. If I went through the trouble of figuring out how to do all that, where I can just take this compressor and plug it in.
Right, but I mean, I guess for the people at home who already have a household compressor, it is possible. Reaper's not necessarily encouraging that. However, it does seem as if it is possible.
I have.
Yeah, Grazietti said he does the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, perfect. See, so people do it. That's good to hear.
Yeah. So I have one of those compressors in the garage that I use for spray tech.
Said they can hear.
What in the world?
Wait, someone said they hear us now, and someone said almost. I still don't hear Michael at all, though. I see his lips are moving.
Oh, apparently
Okay.
John said that they
John
can
says, yeah.
So your mic, make sure it didn't come unplugged or change. Wait, did your headset die, Proctor? Yes, it did. Your headset died. That's that damn headset.
He said that I don't know what we're supposed to get from that sign language. Turn the knob.
Here, I'm gonna call you, Proctor. Okay.
What knob are we supposed to turn? You have all the knobs.
As a side note, by the way, Reaper Collins says this is the best way to listen to Proctor.
There's probably so many F bombs. Oh, there they are, right there. There they are. Okay, looks like Justin reached him. Hopefully, technical difficulties are about to be resolved. I am stoked about ReaperCon. It'll be kind of doing something normal, even though I have to figure out how to do it online, which I'm not so much an online person or technical person. But luckily, I have tech support in my home, so I should be able to get it figured out. So Bug Lips, the story behind why we call Michael Proctor is when Proctor and I both first started coming to Reaper events and stuff, there were like 5 different people named Michael. So they, I think, I can't remember if one of them did actually get called Michael, but most of them ended up being called by their last name just so that we could figure out who was who. And there are fewer now, but it just sort of stuck. He would prefer to be called Michael, I think. And I think he's fine with Mike too, but just years of long habit mean that we go with Proctor. All right, he's clearly trying to do something. Somebody asked another question. Hold on. The swag boxes are supposed to go on sale this week, is my understanding. The date is not any more specific than that because, you know, events transpire. I don't know the answer to the question about more classes, not to my knowledge, but I'm not involved in the scheduling in any way. I just submitted my events and that's all I know. But yes, some classes are going to run on this Twitch channel and they'll be recorded and posted on the YouTube channel like normal. And then other classes are going to happen in Zoom and those are not going to be recorded. So if you want to attend any of the Zoom things, you need to sign up and get a ticket and do it in person.
Hello.
There he is. Hello.
Okay,
welcome
later.
back.
So.
Oh, wait. Say something again.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay, yes.
Yes.
There you are.
So China called and they told me to reboot. Let's do this. Okay. So sorry about everybody. Thanks for being patient. God, 137 people. That might be a new record or something. So all in all, I think this airbrush is really cool. And I'm not just saying that because it's a Reaper airbrush. I think it's neat. I think it's very functional. I think it's worth the price. And I'm gonna make up some darker green so we can kind of see what's going on.
Also, don't forget to get close to your mic there.
I moved it around when I was having all my difficulties. So I got a little dry tip. You don't let your tip get dry too, or crusty.
Okay, so the takeaway is don't bend your tip. Don't let it get dry and crusty.
Yeah, take care of your tip.
Tip maintenance is really the hardest thing about an airbrush, I think.
Yeah.
And so to speak, of course, Rhonda.
Yes. And it doesn't come with an instruction manual.
It will. The prototypes, or whatever we're going to call these things. But I overheard on Reaper Live last week that Ed was efforting to get the manuals and stuff for the ones who are actually going to be sold. Isn't that right, Justin?
Cool.
That's why you hadn't mailed out the other ones, besides you just taking forever to do anything?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So you can see you can get kind of fine brush control and you can start making some stripes. And this is really a similar way in how I started outlining the stripes on this guy. I just started making some stripes coming down and then fine tuning them up and working them back and forth. And the neat thing about utilizing an airbrush is you can go back and forth so much easier because the layers are so thin. It's just really the brush control and feeling comfortable. Then you can come back in and I can do a nice little thin layer. It got a little wet, so I want to dry it off a little bit. And this was just covering up the other. Maybe a little bit too much. Again, I overly thin my paints probably more so than most people do, because I feel more comfortable on the airbrush doing it that way. I feel like it's given me less of a chance to clog. I will get a little bit more of the spider veininess, a little bit, sometimes a little more splatter, but you can come back with the air and knock it back. It makes it a thin coat, so it may take me a few more times to get the kind of the coverage I want. But I feel the benefits of the flexibility of it not clogging, because the most frustrating thing especially when you're learning to airbrush, or even when you've been doing it for a while, are the freaking clogs, when you got to stop and clean out the freaking brush because it's clogging up too much. So for me, the higher pressure, the thinner paints, the air before, air after on the airbrush strokes has been very beneficial as well. One thing kind of on and we kind of did it today, but not so much. When we're painting a miniature, we get, like, if you think of a typical Reaper Triad, it's got its shadow color, its mid-tone, and its highlight. But really the three, and I'm going to grab the Dusky Skin as an example. There's a fairly substantial tonal difference in these, but you don't really have your super dark or you don't have your super light. It's kind of in the middle range, and that's what a lot of the triads are doing. When you're airbrushing, definitely expand. This is one of the things that when I was, Aaron Lovejoy came out to Colorado when I was first learning how to airbrush, and we did a little workshop with him, and he was like, take big jumps in your tonal ranges, take big leaps, and that'll help you with your contrast, because even though it's a darker color and I have it over light, what I was putting on was black green, and with the light and everything, and even with this lighter color underneath, it reads lighter than if I would have painted this thing on even with a thin coat. So the airbrush helps with, it's the best way to say it, kind of added a transparency layer, especially with the kind of the thin layers that I like to apply as well. And then come in and it's 408. I would like to, let's do this. We got time. Let's not do that. Let's do, so you just get some red shadow.
And I would say even for straight brush painting, that with a lot of the triads, you do need to add a darker shadow and add a brighter highlight color to really get the full range of contrast that you're seeing in a lot of people's painting and that you need to do.
Yeah, totally. And so this, play around and really push yourself with your colors and stuff. And I do think it's a good utilization. I just slipped through a little blue liner in there too to make it a little bit darker.
Also because you're just literally unable to paint without blue liner.
That's true. That's definitely true.
You may be about 5% blue liner in composition yourself now.
Probably with all the brush licking I used to do. Do you know I don't really brush lick all that much anymore?
I know you've been working really hard to overcome the habit. And
I've been working.
I'm proud of you.
That's worth it. Just right there, you saying that, it makes it all worth it. So thank you.
I think not poisoning yourself makes it all worth it.
Yeah, that too. I'm sure Michelle will be happy in the long run. But all right. So here we go. So when you do it that way, you just need to clean it out. There was still a little green on the bottom, but whatever. Is that on camera? Okay.
I can see it.
So there's an angle, a 45-degree angle that a lot of people talk about, and I try to follow that as much as I can. But it's also, what I've found with airbrushing too, and I'm saying this while I'm using a darker color. It's a great way to even practice if you struggle sometimes in identifying light sources and stuff. Airbrush will help you kind of go, because here's my light source, what's going out. Now I'm making some patterns and stuff in the skin, so that theory of mine I just gave you really doesn't apply here. But you can even take this in and start doing a little lining in there, and then come back and rework some of your, and this ends up being a little too big, or just don't like it, you can always come back and paint over it again. But this is just with that one needle, and I can get down to a super fine line and start building in where this would have been freehand, and a lot of brush work and moving this back and forth. You can get some nice little patterns and lines and textures within the dinosaur ankle biter here a lot quicker. So this helps you feel more comfortable at all, Rhonda?
Yes, I think I'm excited about the possibility of the dual action thing, assuming my hands can take it. And that is why I bought the pistol one in the first place, because I have some hand pain issues.
Okay,
but this is an opportunity to try and see if I can manage it.
And there is a steady grip that you're going to have to do, right? And it does. I don't have hand problems, but occasionally, if I've been airbrushing for a long period of time, it does cramp up a little bit. I would assume you're probably going to need to take breaks and stretch, and you move around, and maybe your airbrush session is just shorter,
Yeah, I think I just can't plan to do it for 2 hours at a go or anything.
Oh, yeah. No, even if when I do it for a couple hours, I can feel my hand being a little tight or just tired from holding it this way. I mean, this is kind of a weird movement as well. And then also, I've found, even with airbrushing, I like my chair. I keep it higher for the show because people were commenting that I was so low before. But if I'll
you should do it however you want it.
I'll lower my chair to keep my back straighter, because when you're airbrushing, I do find that I hunch more than I normally would. Okay. And Greg's probably on, and if he's still on, he can comment how bad it is to hunch. But trying to keep a little bit straighter and trying to keep your posture a little more relaxed, it will keep your body from tiring out. But so one thing I like to do, kind of the coloration and stuff. So this is kind of airbrushing. This is a little bit of color theory too, because I will take this dark red and start to work it on the feet a little bit more. So he's got some darker feet. I just like darker feet.
Oh yeah, that looks very cool.
On the dinosaurs. And then where there's the folds and stuff, I'll take this. I like to use, like even on reptile creatures or whatnot, or a warm dark color to show a little life, especially like in the folds and stuff. I think that's really cool, especially if I have more yellowy and oranges or yellow and yellow greens and whatnot above. I think the red of the contrast of the warmer red down below is kind of cool too. Because this is more, I don't know. I'm not in the camera. So how's my palette cam worked out this time? Looks like it's a little dark. It's
a little dark, but it looks good in being that we're using the airbrush. It just gives a different perspective to see.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's I liked how it worked out. So it's about a quarter after. I'm still in my work day. I might need to catch up on some work stuff. Is there anything that... Yeah, I see that Sage talks about they have a pistol grip. It's great. It's awesome. That's what Rhonda has too, is a pistol grip as well.
Yeah, the Grex is the model that I have too.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it's a great airbrush. I've had a lot of people that have done it. I played around with it at the Grex booth at Gen Con one year, and it was fun. I don't know. I like the dual action part for what we talked about earlier, the flexibility of it, the air only, and the being able to control. I felt like I have more control over the dual action than just the trigger action one. But people have had great results with the Grex too as well. I took the cap. I took this off just because I have felt like since I have it, I feel more comfortable with it, and I can make sure that my tip is clean. The thing with that is with this cap off, your tip is exposed to danger. So
oh no.
Yeah, you're in the danger zone with your tip. So there's a little bit of, okay, what do I, give and take there. What's the risk?
Yeah, honestly, I've seen Collins' office where his airbrush is, and he does not take very good care of his tip. It's always out. He never cleans it, and it's just
Collins
clogs
just
constantly.
Yeah, Collins has I've always heard that about him, that he has a clogged tip and a bent tip. He just doesn't take care of it. He's very rough on his tip, is what I've been told. So
Yeah,
he could take better care. But
I completely agree.
So that's probably it for today. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks so much for everybody tuning in. Had a lot of fun. I didn't even really get to see a lot of it. Gene was on? Was Jason and Bob and Julie?
Jason was on. Bob and Julie were on. Greg Zuniga was on.
Zuniga.
Jen was on. Zuniga. I don't know if she's still on, because she's probably still working right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Rings is on.
And Planar, and I didn't see Corporea. Rings Raccoon was here. There were a lot of people here. Oh, Jen's still here. She's just been quiet.
Okay. Hi, Jen. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. Still, to me, I think this is a really good airbrush. My uses of airbrushes still are, I like to block everything out. I like to get my color in there. It's a great way to play with color ideas, and especially for everybody pretty much on the line that have done the various Bones Kickstarters over the years, and I'm sure you haven't painted all of them. You got a bunch of monsters that, some of them may be lower on your list to complete. They are just great tools to play with. You remember the old Purple Worm, Rhonda, the first one that Michael Brower sculpted? That was my go-to, especially when it came into Bones, or if it was always in Bones, I'm not sure. That was my go-to practice model. I got like 10 of them, and I had them, and I would just goof around playing with them, and because they were just a big surface. They were one of the bigger miniatures at the time that Reaper made, initially into Bones. But yeah, they were great with. And even when I taught the one airbrush class that I did at ReaperCon, we used that miniature for class. That's a good one to play with. But you're big. And if you got the dinosaurs from the last Kickstarter, these guys are awesome. These guys are so much fun. This one's probably my favorite, even though I like the T-Rex thing. And I'm really looking forward to finishing him up, because he's just a lot of fun. They're just really cool, and they're great airbrush exercises too.
Well, now you got to finish his little friend though too.
Yeah. Do you like the colors that are going on here?
Yeah, and I think they'll look really nice together, because one's kind of greeny and one's kind of red.
Yeah. Cool.
There you go. Yeah, very cool.
I think those are kind of fun. Yeah.
And everyone needs a friend, right?
Yeah, everyone needs a friend. Justin even has friends.
Oh boy. There's the bus. We haven't really heard much from the bus today, but
I know. Has this been the most serious show that we've done?
It was information dense, which is not what this show is used to.
No, I felt really uncomfortable. All full disclosure, all this information has really made me feel a little uncomfortable. Like, oh my God, I don't know. I like to.
You just need to throw a few people under the bus before you leave, so you feel better.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think I just need to get that fix. Justin's always easy. See, needs more blood. Bobby Jackson says. So Bobby's on. Thanks for watching, Bobby. I have your chimney, so I just got to touch it up, and I'll mail it off to you soon. And anyway, so hey, what's going on related to shows? Do you want me to do that rundown, or do you want to do that?
Yeah, no, you do a great job every week.
All right, showtime.
I don't think that. I think you just want to laugh at him.
Rhonda.
Every day, excuse me, every day, Monday through Friday, that's every day of the week. Anne does her show, Toolbox, right? Toolbox with Painting Big Anne.
Reaper Toolbox Pro Tips.
Yes, and her, like I'm Clever Crow, and you're Bird with a Brush, Anne is Painting Big. So she's a big painter. So she does her gig every day at 11, right? Justin?
11:30. Yes.
11:30. Oh, she pushed it back a half hour?
Well, she's on West Coast time now, so that's
so
pretty
that's
early over there, I guess.
Always been
Yeah.
11:30.
Oh, okay. That's 9:30 her time. So 11:30 Central Time. And then on Mondays, following her show later in the day at 2 o'clock Central Time. No, 3 o'clock Central Time. 3 o'clock Central Time, right? Is Miniature Monthly.
Miniature Monday.
Miniature
It's
Monday.
3 o'clock Central.
Yeah. Miniature Monthly that's Aaron Lovejoy. Yes.
Yeah, that's his Patreon.
Who I messaged this last week. So we're going to have Aaron on the show, which is probably going to be the last show of the Crow's Nest because we'll probably be banned from Twitch after that. After ReaperCon. So we'll go through the ReaperCon thing. We'll still have the Crow's Nest going on. I'll have Aaron Lovejoy on, and then the world will burn down. Anyways, Josh has Miniature Mondays, and that's on Mondays. And then so Tuesday is Ann again at 11:30, her new time. And then this show, you know when it is and everything. Wednesday is Ann again at 11:30, which is her new time. Everybody mark that down. And then is Luca starting his show yet, or is that not starting till after ReaperCon?
After ReaperCon.
Okay. Luca is going to be on, the Italian painter. He's funny. Then Thursday is Ann again, Sadie painting platinum, super cool. And then Reaper Live, that little show Reaper Live. And then Friday is Ann 11:30. Then Reaper Land at 2, right?
3.
2 my time, 2 Mountain Time. If you want to base all your viewing on Mountain Time, it's at 2.
Oh boy.
And then that's it, unless it's a Bones update day, which it won't be this week, right?
Correct.
And then this is a crappy Friday because no Bones update and no Reaper Errant Friday.
Yes.
So
what a sad Friday.
That's a sad Friday. I don't even know if I'd tune in at all on Friday because there's the best show of all on all of Reaper Twitch is Reaper Errant, where we get to go play D&D and kill things. That's my opinion. The best show on the channel. I mean, this is a close.
And you get to look at Frank's amazing terrain setups and painted miniature.
And for those of you that missed last week's show, go catch it. It's 3 hours of golden entertainment, and we got to kill all kinds of things. I'm not even going to ruin it. And half of our party got wiped out. They didn't end up completely dying.
In one hit, they got one-shotted. They didn't just get wiped out. They got one-shotted.
And Jason Cornhole, he was 3 hit points, 3 die rolls, whatever, 3 points away from completely dying in one shot because he had a natural 20, and this frost giant whipped his ass. But we dealt.
Yeah, apparently giants are pretty badass. Who knew?
I know, you're the one that attacked it first, I think.
What? No, that was not me.
Anyways, so that's the rundown of the shows. Rhonda, thanks so much for being on the show. Had a lot of fun. I'm glad you.
Thanks for inviting me. Now I know more about this airbrush. I'm excited.
Well, thank you for pretending that you learned something, that you got some value out of the show. Your checks
I
in
totally
the mail.
Learned stuff.
Checks in the mail.
The run the air, then the paint, then more air. Very important tip.
And maybe we'll do another session. I want to find a miniature where I can really show like some kind of demon or some kind of dragon where we can go totally crazy on colors, where you're more apt to do that than for me. Dinosaurs, I just kind of want it to be more dinosaur-y. But anyways, do you have anything that you'd like to pub? Like you're going to be doing some kind of streaming thing here in the near future, right?
I believe so, but first there's ReaperCon. So nothing new really happens until ReaperCon. And I, for some reason, am doing a ton of classes for that, and you are not. So I don't understand how that happened. But
all right, okay. What classes are you teaching?
Well, this is actually, if you have friends, anyone out there listening, if you have friends that you've given the Learn to Paint kits to, I'm doing a paint along for both of the Learn to Paint kits. And then I'm doing the Reaper Bones FAQ, kind of live and on air, kind of of all the things that I tested when I was doing my testing of the Reaper Bones. These are the things that I think are the best ones to use. So again, if you have friends that have been frustrated with bones, or you still have questions yourself, what kind of putty, what glue, how to get the mold lines off, I'm going to run through all that stuff.
Wow, that's
I'm
cool.
going to do it twice. So once on Twitch, once on Zoom.
Oh, I'll watch the Twitch one. I might learn something.
So I know it's a lot of beginner stuff, and people are probably hoping for the ones that I usually do at ReaperCon, but there's so many more people that we can reach this way that I thought I'd go back to basics this once.
What else are you doing during ReaperCon? Let's pub you at ReaperCon.
Somebody asked me if I would be on this panel.
Yeah.
Talk more about that.
What's that about?
I don't know. I'm just a guest. Tell me. You tell me.
Okay, so Saturday, Justin, is that at 11-ish Central Time?
For yours?
Yeah.
We haven't released the official schedule yet, but let me see.
All right, I changed stuff around on the assumption that that's when it was. So don't tell me it's a different time now, Justin.
Anyways, so here's what we're doing on Saturday. Justin can come up with a time afterwards, but we're, instead of doing a painting class, we're gonna do the Crow's Nest episode with yourself, Jen Greenwald, Derek Schubert, and me, and we're gonna talk about painting. Leveling up painting is really kind of the summary of it. How tips and tricks and what we've learned over the years to level up our skills. I think we'll also talk about entries, entering for competitions, and how to level up your game there and what to look for. So it'll be a panel discussion, and we'll be on Twitch, of course, so there'll be a lot of chances for folks to ask questions and, ideas and what have you, and like things you've always wanted to know or what have you. So that's kind of what we thought about. We can do another class, or Justin, actually, this was Justin's idea. So the producer was awake and delivering.
I think it sounds
content.
like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So it worked out really well.
But we're also doing Reaper Errant that weekend.
Yeah, so Friday night will be, I think it's a special edition of Reaper Errant. I don't know, right, Justin? We're doing something different, maybe?
It is an episode of Reaper Errant. There's going to be some special things on it, hopefully.
Ooh, cool.
Some.
Well, let's try extra hard not to die.
Some showcased minis that may be like a world premiere of sorts.
Ooh, cool. Oh, is that what we were talking about?
Potentially, yes.
Ooh, like maybe.
Also, to confirm, according to my schedule, I have your class or your panel on Saturday, Proctor, starting at 10 a.m. my time.
Ooh, that's a 9 a.m. my time. I gotta wake up early on a Saturday. Yeah, that's.
You do that anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. Oh, and anything else that you're going to be doing during ReaperCon that we need to pop up, Rhonda?
I think that's everything.
Oh, cool. I have a
if
class.
I remember anything else, I'll put it on my blog.
Okay. I'm teaching a Shaded Metallics class on Friday around 10 or something. I don't know when it is. The schedule will come out. Miniatures getting posted up. Paints and stuff posted up. I think I might even do on one of these Crow's Nests, I'll do kind of a prep for that class, or anybody that wants to tune in and see, okay, here's kind of what we're going to do, and here's the miniature and kind of things to help out as well. But we'll work on that as well. Just Shaded Metallics, my old school class. Going back to an old school miniature that I taught a lot with in the class. It's a dwarf Throrum, whatever. He's got a giant sword, and he's got this really cool scale mail on his back. The plate mail that's kind of scaly. It's really cool. He's a great miniature for teaching Shaded Metallics with. So, and there's a bones version and a metal version. I listed both of them for whatever. If you want to follow along, I'm gonna be painting a metal one because I already have a couple from previous classes that are left over. So you can go and get a bones one, metal one. Still, it's all the same. And then check out. Rhonda skipped over her blog. Check out Rhonda's blog. Rhonda, what's the blog?
Birdwithabrush.com.
There you go. It's awesome, especially.
And I think the classes are actually already up for registration, Michael.
Are they cool?
And games on, Warhorn. I think the games are on Warhorn. And then if you go to the ReaperCon Live site, you can get the schedule for the games and classes.
If you like reading, go to Rhonda's blog.
There are pictures. You can
really
just scroll through the pictures.
If you like lots of words and reading those,
there are lots of words.
Oh,
Proctor definitely prefers pictures, especially if they pop up.
Yep, they pop up and they do little animations and they move around and they tell me things. You ever heard of these things called audiobooks? They're the best. I love them.
Audiobooks are very cool.
Anyway, so we're going to be rating Anne today.
I feel like she's using us.
No.
I think she's setting up her time to just use all of the guests tied to this show, and she's trying to suck them all away.
Specifically, Crow's Nest. You're right. Yep.
Yeah. That's why she's doing this. No, support Anne. Go over there. Show her the love. Tell her I said hello. We're getting out of here. We're rating. What else? Do I need to do anything?
There were some questions about what color you'll be using, which I assume is for your class, but you said you were going to do a little one of these before your class would cover stuff like that.
Yes, and in the description, I was texting Adrian today, and all the paints will be listed in the description of the class. And they're nothing special. There's no, you don't got this paint kind of thing. Old bronze, tarnished steel, those are our two metallic colors. Templar blue, Ashen blue, and Highlands moss are going to be important colors to use as well. Of course, we're going to have blue liner, right? We got to have blue liner. And we're going to have a few other colors in there as well. And then if you've got red liner, green liner, red shadow, green shadow, either or is good. And then any of the clears, all of those clear colors, I love to use those. And then anybody, yeah.
You have 3 seconds before I hit the raid button.
All right, bye-bye. Later.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Nice to see you all again. See you all.
Stream.